Okay, now we're going to do social studies. You'll need your social studies book, and we're going to read lesson 2, page 178. Lesson 2 is called Early America. History is the study of things that happened in the past. It tells about places and people and how they have changed over time. The first Northern Americans. Native Americans were the first people to live in North America. Many different groups lived all over the continent. They knew how to find and grow food. They hunted animals for food and used the skins for clothing. Some communities built shelters from wood while others used earth. So on the bottom of page 178 is a picture of how they farmed fields. Now, those farms don't really look like the farms we have. And because it didn't look like the farms that the settlers were used to seeing, they didn't think they did any farming. They just thought it was wild plants growing. Okay. So each tribe that lived in North America was unique. They had their own languages, they had their own customs, they had their own art, they had their own culture. So they didn't all speak the same language, they didn't believe in the same things, they did not look the same, they didn't live the same. Some were hunters, some were farmers, some lived in snowy areas, some lived on the beach. There was a group that would, in the summertime, lived in the mountains of San Bernardino, and then in the wintertime, they would go down to the beach. So they would travel and kind of made roads that way, their own primitive roads. Okay, let's look at 179. A Native American tribe called the Powhatan used small trees to build their homes. First, they bent the trees and tied them together. Then they covered the trees with big pieces of tree bark. The people cooked on fires inside their homes. So those are the houses built from small trees and bark, and that was a wall for protection from animals, but also from other tribes, because they would fight with each other too to get hunting rights, or if they felt somebody was on their hunting grounds, they would go and fight. So who were the people, the first people in North America? Good, it was the Native Americans, and they were all over. They were in Canada, they were in Mexico, they were in South America, they were all over the place, okay? So the Powhatans, the Powhatan people provided food by hunting, gathering, and farming. They lived in what we now call Virginia and New Jersey. So, anybody ever see the movie Pocahontas? Well, she was an actual person, and she was from this tribe. I know, right? Pocahontas was an actual real person. So was John Smith. So were most of the people in that movie. But then they kind of took liberty with it and did their own thing. Okay, let's turn the page. Disney did. It's not totally true, but they were real people, and they did come to the country to find gold, but there is no gold in the East, and they were not able to find gold. But instead, they learned how to live, and did get along with them for a while. So let's look at page 180. Colonies and settlers. After a while, Native Americans were no longer the only people in North America. People from Europe decided to start colonies here. A colony is a place that is ruled by another country. So we were ruled by England before we fought the War of Independence. The European countries wanted to use the resources of North America. Settlers began traveling across the ocean to make new homes in North America. So if you see, they're coming from England and they're going to Plymouth, that's where the Pilgrims went. And they're going to Jamestown, which is New York, Virginia, that's the Powhatan area. So is Jamestown to the north or south of Plymouth? Good, it's from the south. So the Pilgrims left, the people that went to Jamestown went for new opportunities. They came to the country for new opportunities. The Pilgrims that went to Plymouth actually came for religious freedoms because they wanted to practice differently than the Church of England did. And so they, the churches in that area at that time, so they came to a new land to be able to practice the religion, the Christianity, the way they wanted to practice Christianity. Okay. So how is it different for Native Americans and settlers to meet their needs for food long ago than it is for families today? Right. They had to grow and hunt their own food. They didn't have a Stater Brothers or a Ralph's to go to. They could not go to Target and buy some clothes. They had to either weave their own cloth or they had to take the hide from one of the animals they killed for food and make that into clothing. Okay. Very hard work. Lots of hard work. Okay, page 181. The European country called England set up colonies along the Atlantic Ocean. The first was what is now Virginia. A group of settlers built a colony called Jamestown. Then a group known as the Pilgrims settled in what is now Massachusetts. They began a colony called Plymouth. Soon England had 13 colonies. So which community was settled first, Plymouth or Jamestown? Very good, Jamestown was. Which one do we celebrate at Thanksgiving, though? We celebrate Plymouth. Very good, because they are the Pilgrims. Okay, so Jamestown was settled in 1607. It's a long time ago. And that's over 400 years ago. And Plymouth was settled in 1620, which is exactly 400 years ago. So it was a long time ago. But there were people here before the Pilgrims. Okay, so people were in Jamestown before they went up to Plymouth. Okay, let's turn the page. Help from the Native Americans. The settlers found that life was different from what they were used to. They had to build their own homes, grow their own food, and make their own furniture and clothing. Not everyone knew how to do this. So this is a picture of the Pilgrims and the Wampanoags had a feast together that has become known as Thanksgiving. But do you see a turkey? No, they ate fish. They ate fish and oysters and lots of vegetables and things like that because they didn't really have turkeys. But this is what the Native Americans ate. And so the Native Americans taught them how to make this for themselves, or how to not make it, but grow it for themselves, or hunt it for themselves. So how do you think life was different for the children in the colonies? Do you think they went to school? Probably not. They had lots of chores, more chores than you have. They had to care for the farm animals. They made food and they made their clothes. They collected firewood. They didn't have school. They probably learned how to read the Bible or from the Bible. So they didn't have a formal school. They learned from their parents, probably, kind of like you're doing right now. But they didn't have anything like this. So Sacagawea was a Shoshone woman who helped explorers Lewis and Clark by talking with other Native Americans they met along the way to the Pacific Ocean. They went, she showed them how to get to the Pacific Ocean through Oregon. And she was a strong, helpful, and uncomplaining member of their party, and she did it all with a baby on her back. So she is a superstar, right? Because I could not imagine living in that time with a baby on my back, let alone showing people how to get to Oregon. And then the Tecumseh, a Shawnee chief, felt settlers should not take Native American land. He was admired for his belief that all Native Americans should unite. So he tried to unite the Native Americans to keep their land that these settlers were taking, because the settlers did not see them as people. They saw them as natives. They saw them as, because they didn't speak English, they didn't believe in God, they didn't have their same religion, they didn't wear the same clothes, they didn't speak the same language, they didn't do the same things. They thought of them as lesser people, and so they thought they could take whatever they wanted. Like this, they were told in England, this land is yours, just go and build on it and it can be yours. Well, it wasn't theirs to take. People already lived there, and it was very unfortunate that this is how our country began. We are now different than that, which is good. We've learned from history, and so that's the important part of learning history, is so that we don't continue to make the same mistakes that we've made in the past. Okay, let's continue the lesson. The settlers learned from the Native Americans where to hunt, fish, and gather food. They also learned how to grow new kinds of crops and build shelters. Native Americans helped the settlers survive in this new place. So how did the Native Americans help the settlers? Good, they helped them get food, build shelters. They helped them learn how to hunt, fish, gather food, grow crops, build shelters. It's important to know this because I'm going to ask you to do number 3. We're not answering questions today, but number 3. It says, draw a picture that shows one way Native Americans helped the early Northern American settlers. I'm going to change that to draw 4 ways the Native Americans helped the settlers learn how to live. So you're going to take a piece of white paper. Hopefully you all have blank white paper. And in each square, you're going to write what way the Native Americans are helping. Okay, so you're going to title each picture. So hunting, fishing, crops, building shelters, something like that. Draw the picture of them doing it. Make sure you put background in it too. I don't just want to see a stick figure with a stick fish in its hand. And do we need to color? We need to color. So, not 1, 4. 4 ways that the Native Americans helped the settlers learn how to live in the new land. Okie dokie pokies. Cool. Okay, so I will write this in the email and make sure that you guys know for sure that you need the 4 ways, not the 1, not 1, 4. 4 ways, okay? You will also be doing page 34, worksheet page 34, where you're going to be putting the pictures in order of sequencing order. What happened first, okay? So that's what you're doing for social studies. And we'll see in a little bit for some science.